research it. We do all this work to make sure that vacation goes smoothly. And one thing that gets overlooked is, well, what if vacation doesn't go smoothly? Things that are unexpected happen to us. Like we don't sit down and say, well, hey, what happens if I died on vacation? What happens if I got sick on vacation or someone I was traveling with had an accident on vacation? So we don't think about those things because we're looking forward to vacation. We're looking from an escape from the usual things that invade our minds and our headspace every day, and that crowd that are in there, such as oh, got to do work and got to manage this, and you're trying to escape. Vacation is a form of escapism, right? So you're doing that so that we can relax. So it's not relaxing to think about bad things happening. So of course it goes on the don't do list. We don't even think about it, right? So many years, things that I didn't think about when I was getting ready for vacation, but now this is part of kind of what I do for a living. So I think about this and talk to clients about it. And so we want to get that information out to you so you can add this to your checklist of things to get done before you actually leave. And the good news is, if you're like leaving tomorrow, there's still some things you can get done on this list. So don't worry. Now you won't be able to get everything done on the list, but there are some things that we can you can still do. So, and if you're leaving later this summer, wonderful. You have a lot of time to get all these things done off this list. And this list will be helpful no matter how many times you travel and no matter where you're going. So it could be that you're going far, you're going to Europe, or you're going down an African safari, you're going to Hawaii, or you're going to Las Vegas, or you're just going down to San Diego for a long weekend. Whatever it is, wherever you're traveling, this will be helpful information for you. So we've kind of encapsulated as a 10 must-dos before you leave for vacation, at least as have we put it, obviously. It could be, there could be more stuff, there could be less stuff that apply to you. So just take a seat and listen to what we're going to teach you today. This is what we're going to learn. Your key insurance considerations, estate planning reminders, preparations that involve financial, digital, and business. So for business owners, this is going to be important, and some bonus travel safety tips, and not necessarily all in this order. So these are something that will, like I said, some of you will apply. Everything in here that we talk about today will apply to you. Some of you, it's just some of the things. So let's get to it. So the first thing, I do this in order of priority, especially for those of you that might be leaving tomorrow, for example, or know people that are leaving tomorrow. The first thing that I think about when I hear that somebody is going to be traveling abroad, they're going outside of the United States, is travel medical insurance. Now, what travel medical insurance is insurance to help pay for medical costs for your care in the event that something happens to you that's unexpected. We don't go on vacation with the expectation that we're going to get hurt. Sometimes, maybe if we're going on vacation and we know we're going to be very active on vacation, that might be on our mind, such as buddies of mine that went out to France to go biking ahead of the one summer to one went to France, went to Spain, and they were on a biking tour. So, okay, that you could get injured because you're being active, or you're going out parasailing, or you know you're going to be doing surfing, or you're going to be doing something active. You might think about that ahead of time, but most of us aren't thinking about that. But what happens if you do get injured internationally? Well, guess what? The medical insurance that you have through Anthem, through Kaiser, is not going to cover your medical costs internationally. If you're on Medicare, not going to cover your costs internationally. And that could be a problem. Now, I know we've heard like, oh, I know so and so who went to Germany to get back surgery, or they went to Mexico to do this elective surgery, and it was cheaper there. So if my health insurance doesn't cover, that's okay. It's not going to be that expensive. But remember, this is out-of-pocket cost, so it might not be expensive, and certainly not as expensive comparatively speaking, but it's going to be expensive to you coming out of your bank account. If it's your child, your spouse, or yourself, then, or maybe it's one of your parents, maybe you might be traveling as a family. So that is going to be expensive out-of-pocket costs, and we want to avoid that. So we want to get extra insurance. And hits home personally because my dad had an unexpected event in 2016 traveling to Brazil for the Paralympics. And that's when we learned the very vital importance of travel medical insurance. He had to stay an extra week in the hospital beyond the trip stay. And fortunately, he had travel medical insurance that covered his time there. And we learned some lessons along the way that I'm going to share with you today. So, number one is get medical insurance. You got to get it before you leave. So, you're not going to be able to already be abroad somewhere and then purchase it. All the plans will not allow you to do that. You have to sign declarations and disclaimers and things. So, we want to do this in advance of you leaving. Literally, if you're leaving tomorrow, you can still do it. And so what you're going to get is coverage in case you have to go to the emergency room. And get treated. And the coverage that you're going to want is to ensure that you have a dollar number. All right, so you're not a deductible dollar number. You're going to get, hey, they're going to treat up to X amount, 100,000, 200,000. Really, what we want to see is a high dollar figure like $500,000, and it's going to include any sort of transportation back and extractions, the words that you're going to see in these plans. So a medevac extraction to back to the United States for your treatment, or extraction to a country that could treat you. For example, if you're in a country that doesn't have the capability of treating whatever needs to be treated due to the accident, injury, or health condition, they're going to transport you at least to the nearest country that can, certainly back to the United States. Those costs are going to be super expensive. So we want at least to see 500,000 in coverage, and that's kind of standard. So that's not something that is shocking. And we, of course, medical costs are going to be included in that too. And you also want so you don't want to just go and put $100,000, because let me tell you, that's what the insurance my parents had for this trip to Brazil, and that money went quickly. And my dad probably could have stayed an extra few days in the hospital, but couldn't afford to because the policy was running out. So he had to leave. Fortunately, everything worked out, but we could foresee a situation where that it wasn't safe for him to leave and fly back to the United States, and there was some complication medically there, and that was all because he shouldn't have been moved. The only reason why he was moved because he wouldn't have been able to afford to continue staying there at the high cost that was on a daily basis. Because if you're in another country, sometimes they want cash to continue to keep you in the hospital. Like in Brazil, they were asking my mom for money out of the ATM to pay in cash. Unfortunately, she kept referring them back to the insurance company. So you don't want to find yourselves in those situations. So the advice would be to purchase in advance, purchase the requisite amount, including the extraction, the medevac situations, and you also want to ensure that you're covering longer than your actual stay. In the event that your travel plans back to the United States get delayed, and you want to foresee a potential situation. Let's say your flight gets canceled, and that same day gets canceled, then there is the unforeseen event, and the insurance company is going to say, well, you're outside of your policy, perhaps, because you should have been leaving, you should have already left, and the policy ended and terminated at that time. Now, that almost happened to my dad because he was literally on the airplane on the tarmac getting ready to leave Brazil when the episode occurred. And so the insurance company, even in that situation, was trying to say, oh, you had already left. The plane had already left, but the plane wasn't in the air yet, so it didn't count. They had to cover. But insurance companies are going to look for any angle that they can to not cover the situation. So you want to buffer that by adding time onto your policy. Oh, you're going to go to Europe for a couple weeks. We'll get your policy for 3 weeks. That way you can avoid any sort of unforeseen delays in your travel, and you're still under policy. And a lot of these policies have some that you can get, also include other fringe insurance like trip interruption, to lost baggage, things like that, that kind of also come as extras in these packages, and they're not expensive at all. So you don't just say, I'm going to hedge on nothing happening and deal with it if I need to deal with it because I don't want to pay an extra insurance. I already pay a lot of money for medical insurance stateside. This is not an expensive policy. And personally, I've used them for my family when we've traveled internationally and in the past. And this gives me tremendous peace of mind for that. So there's a few different places you can look at on the internet. Just look out travel medical insurance. One that I've used in the past is Faye, Faye. So getfaye.com, getfaye.com. They got a very user-friendly platform. It's really easy to utilize and fill out. So that's the one I've used the last number of times. It's really great. So that's travel medical insurance. It's an absolute must in my mind. The next, and kind of the lines of things to have when you're traveling away from home, not just internationally, this is anywhere. So this includes the United States too. So some of us might be going to beaches, even though we have wonderful beaches here in California. We like to travel to other places that have more tropical beaches like Hawaii, or we go down to Mexico, or some of us go out to Florida. We go out to the East Coast. We go to Hilton Head. We're out there traveling to other beaches, or we're just doing traveling other places, visiting family. We are more than 75 miles away from home. Well, guess what? The death doesn't care where you are. If you're on vacation, it's not going to wait. Death's going to come and happen when it's going to happen, and we just don't know. And sadly, it does happen for some while they're on vacation. And so if you have the situation where you're not back from vacation yet and you die or someone in your traveling party dies, what then happens? Well, naturally, you have to get the body back home. And that's called repatriation. So it's a nicer way to saying a deceased body is being transported back home. And that is going to cost some money. And even worse than the money is going to be the logistics to do that. A lot of paperwork. Going between state lines, paperwork. Going between countries, paperwork, especially in this age of still war on terror and um, border security, and just think of all the challenges we have with people, live people going between borders. It's no different, sometimes more difficult when we have deceased bodies going between borders and having to know what paperwork to file, who to call, and all of that. That is going to be just a nightmare, for lack of a better word. I mean, it's already going to be a nightmare. Someone's died. If for your family, if you die, it's your family. It's going to be a nightmare for them that you've died. And then on top of that, they have to fill out a ton of paperwork and figure out the logistics, and then pay lots of money. Well, the amount of money, just to give you a frame of reference, I mean, it could from a state like Nevada, Arizona to California, that could be $2,000. $10,000 from Mexico, $15,000 or more from Europe for one person's body being transported. And then there could be some ancillary. That's just to get them back, right? And then there's once they get them back to the state, there could be ancillary charges to get them to the mortuary. So there's all these expensive costs that we don't think about because we don't think about dying on vacation. So and instead, we want to get some insurance for that as well. Now, there's a couple different companies that you can use out there that do repatriation service insurance. We have a provider that we use, and we're happy to, for those that are interested, just put in the chat that you're interested, and Laura will make sure that you get our link that you can get to the company so you can purchase the plans. But really, they're very inexpensive. I mean, for under $500 for the rest of your life, you can be protected in the event that you die more than 75 miles away from home. And so this is, again, something that I'm not just preaching and not doing. I'm not the cobbler without shoes. It's something that I have for me, my wife, and our kids and our family, and also have made sure that extended members, my parents, my sister, people here at work, making sure I just a big proponent because it's a no-brainer. For less than $500, this is something that you don't have to worry about the rest of your life. You're traveling more than 75 miles away from your home and you pass away, then at that time, then the paperwork's covered, the cost is covered. It seems like one of those things, very few in life that are just a no-brainer. So literally, you can go to Vegas, and if you died in Vegas, your body can be transported back home just effectively, and your family doesn't have to worry about that burden and deal with that burden. So some of the things that we deal with in estate planning actually deal with laws. and wills and trusts and avoiding court and all these things. Some of them were practical, like we were just talking about. Practical to have travel medical insurance, very practical to have this repatriation insurance. Because those are the things that you're going to deal with first. No one's going to be dealing with a will or a trust immediately. Yes, soon thereafter, but not immediately at the moment that you literally just died. Well, the first thing is just trying to figure out how you're going to get that person's body home. All right, so that's number two on the list of the top 10 things. Now, kind of getting into the meat of what we do here in Snyder Law is creating part of what we do is estate planning. So making sure you create or review an estate plan before you leave. Now, estate plan quotations, everyone's estate plan is different. I put in here some core documents that you're going to want to create or review before you leave. And now, this is an event you're going internationally or domestically. It is important to have these documents in place. Power of attorney, healthcare directive, a will and trust. And this is a California show. So anyone that's listening that's not in California, this is not geared for you. I mean, it could be instructive for things that we talked about up to this point, but as far as the law it's different in every state as far as probate's concerned. So Californians, just take note, you need both a will and a trust. For 99% of the people, need both a trust and a will. A will alone is not going to cut it. And that's because we own homes, most of us. And now that doesn't matter if you have a mortgage on it. You say, oh, the bank owns my home. You own it on title. So you have more than most of us, $750,000 in a value in your home is more, not equity, but just the value. And everything else, if you have more than 180, now it's $209,000 or more, then you're going to have to go to probate, even if you have a will. So, bottom line, most Californians need a trust and a will to go along with that. You want to make sure if you have young children, minor children who are under 18, that you have plans for their guardianship, and that's all set up. If you have pets, you want to make sure that you have instructions for caretakers for your pets. And if many of us now have cryptocurrencies, or certainly all of us have a digital footprint, so what happens with those things if we were to pass away or become incapacitated? How are people going to manage that for us? So we want to make sure we have our plan in place and that it's been updated or reviewed. So if you say, well, look, I did that planning a while ago, that's wonderful. You know, you're ahead of the game. You're ahead of over half the population. More than half the population has not done any estate planning. You're ahead of the game. But if you've done it more than 3 years ago, it's probably a great time for a review. Why? Because things have changed in your life, some of which you know, and some of which you don't realize were changes that were significant. And then, of course, there's been changes in the laws and some changes in policies. They're not necessarily changes in the law, but changes in policies. What do I mean by that? Well, banks. Banks are infamous, from my perspective, in making all sorts of policy changes. You know that. They send you the notices on email, you get them in the mail, and it has all this fine print. Hey, we changed our end user policy, and here it is. And most people just don't read it because it's a lot of fine print. But the policies that bank have can really be impactful. For example, one policy that many financial institutions have that have been growing is not policies that render certain powers of attorney ineffective because the dates of the signatures on those documents are too old. They become quote unquote stale, as if the document was a piece of bread. It's now stale because the policy is if it's older than 2 years, we're not going to recognize it. Why? Because the banks are scared that there's another more recent power of attorney out there that supersedes the one that's being presented to them. And they're concerned that they're not dealing with the correct person. And if they allow that person to have access to funds and they accept that power of attorney, that they're later going to get sued by the party that has the most current one. So, for example, mom filled out a power of attorney a number of years ago, named a son, but then changed her mind because, son over the years became a little untrustworthy. That wasn't really good with his own money, and so there was some concern. So he shifted it over to her daughter, and then did a new power of attorney and within the last year, naming the daughter and canceling the old power of attorney, then of course the intention is that the daughter is the only one that has a power of attorney, but that son walks into the bank and says, "Hey, I have this power of attorney from 5 years ago." The bank doesn't know if that is the newest one or not. They're concerned that because it's 5 years old now, then there's likely going to be potentially, or anyway, there's going to be a newer one. So they've created this policy to insulate themselves and said, "Hey, look, we're not going to accept one that's older than 2 years." And they're getting driven by the insurance companies that insure the funds too in this. And their adjusters are saying, "Hey, look, these are best practices." Now, mind you, that's not every financial institution. These are just some that we're seeing, and then other policies attached with it that some banks are now requiring that you put the POA's name on the account as an authorized person. So my example, the mom would have had to go to the bank and put her daughter on the account, not as an account holder necessarily, but an authorized person as POA. So they require that. And if you don't have that, then they're not going to recognize the person who comes to the bank. Daughter comes to the bank, said, "Hey, look, I have mom's POA. Here it is. It's immediate POA, so I have authority to help mom." And the bank will say, "So sorry you didn't follow our policy. We're not going to recognize that, and as good as nothing." So we want to make sure that we're reviewing all our documents so that we don't run into these problems. At a minimum, making sure that we have current dates of signatures. We're not running into the staleness issue. And we're addressing any sort of other things that may have changed in our life because family dynamics change all the time. People have passed away, relationships have changed, there's been some estrangement, sometimes there's some additions, right? There's some happy changes. People are having new children are born, right? So some of the people that we meet over the years are coming to us. They haven't updated their plan, and they've had 2 or 3 kids in the meantime, or there's grandkids now, and so some people have moved, and that impacts their planning. And certainly, like I said, if you have minor children, you want to make sure that guardianship is set up, because that is the easiest way that your kids can land in the foster care system, is if you don't have that set up. Grandma and grandpa, aunts and uncles do not have any inherent authority because they're family members to have custody of your children. They may eventually be granted custody, but in the meantime, your kids are going to be in foster care. So we want to adjust to that. So I said, 3 years my example on our slide. 2 years since your last review. Then you want to schedule a review from your attorney. If you still have a relationship with that attorney, that'd be great. Go to the attorney that created your plan. If it's been a while, you probably don't have a relationship. We do offer trust reviews in our office, and that'd be a great time to do that before you go on vacation, so that any sort of updates you might need, we can get done before you leave. I talked about pets and digital and cryptocurrency here. This is also important. Our pets, we treat them very well. Those of us that have pets, like dogs, cats, birds. I have all three types. No, I don't have cats. What am I talking about? I have birds, no cats, and I have dogs and birds. Cats don't mix with dogs and birds. But for those of you that have pets like me, you want to make sure that they're going to be taken care of, not just for the time that you're away on vacation, but if God forbid something happened to you on vacation, that they're in the right hands afterwards and they're not an afterthought. And then we have a digital footprint. So how are people going to be able to access your data that need to access it? I have a family asking me, "Well, how are we going to be able to get on our family member's phone now that they've passed away?" And the answer is, well, you can't. If they haven't given you the password, they haven't set up a legacy contact through Apple, and you don't have any legal permissions through a will or a trust, then you're sorry, you're toast. Apple's not going to give over that information. That data is protected. So all you can do is try to guess the password, and that's the best that you can do. So there's definitely some challenges there, and also, of course, you try to sign in on accounts, and they want two-factor authentication. And if you don't know how to access the phone, it's not going to work in that situation, or other devices that might be able to receive a text message. It's just not going to work. So you have to make sure that you are organizing your digital assets and ensuring that there is an access plan for them, whether we're using a legal document, whether we're using some technique or a feature like Facebook has their legacy feature, or I just said Apple has their legacy contact. So you're using features within the certain software or companies, or we're doing or we're just doing something old school, like we're writing down passwords and the secret answers to secret questions, and we're keeping that in a secure location and making sure it's easily updated. Some of you might use a password aggregator like LastPass or Dashlane. That's super vital and important. You're going to want to make sure that you have somebody that is not going on your trip that's going to be able to have access to that in the event that there's emergency or crisis. So those are things that we're going to want to look at here, which is this slide's about accessing your estate planning documents, right? So that person who's not on your trip, it needs to be able to access not just passwords, but also legal documents. And the easiest example, you're traveling, you land in a hospital. How are they going to know? How are people that aren't traveling with you going to know that you're in the hospital? Maybe you're not, you're just you and your spouse traveling. And so there's not like a big group. And so you and your spouse could be in an accident and you're both in the hospital. How are your loved ones back home going to know that that's happened? That you've gone out to Charleston, South Carolina, you've gone up to Seattle, or down, even down, you're going to San Diego, and you find you got an accident and you're in the hospital. How are your family members going to know that that happened? Number one, how are they going to have access to the planning that you did put in place? Like you have an advanced healthcare directive, you have a power of attorney, you have a trust. How are they going to be able to access any of that? Do they even know you have those things? So we want to talk about some practicalities around this, making sure that the people that need to know that you have these legal documents, you have a plan. They also need to know where to find that plan, and we need to have a mechanism in which to inform them that something's happened to you and they need to start acting within the capacity, the role that you've assigned them in the plan. So if you have for example, mom and dad, they've assigned a son to be the successor trustee and their power of attorney agent and healthcare agent, right? So now mom and dad go off on their trip. There's a bad accident. They're in the hospital. They can't talk to anybody because they're unconscious or they're being operated on or they're sedated. We need to make sure that there is an emergency protocol for the hospital to know who they are and who to contact. And they contact that. Now the son finds out that something happened to mom and dad. That son needs to be able to access the legal documents to be able to go to the hospital and say, "Hey, hospital, I'm my parents' healthcare agent." They're able to access the bank accounts and make sure that things are able to be paid for, bills are paid, the hospital's paid, all the things. They can step in and be their agent to help them out at that time. And they need legal documents for that. So where are they going to find that? Are they going to have a copy of it? Are you going to store it in a special place where they can access it no matter where they are? Because what if the son, well, mom and dad's on vacation, son's on vacation as well with his own family somewhere else, and he's not at home around his own documents, or if he lived close to mom and dad, is not near their home, so can't go get their estate planning binder and all that. So is there a way that that the son can access that on the cloud? And whether you're using some sort of share folder, like ones that many of us use for other things, like iCloud, the Dropbox, Google Drive, or we're using some other more sophisticated advanced platform that has better protections, like Everplans or DocuBank, which is both of which we use for our clients. So our clients get these platforms as part of their planning, and they can use them since their clients are Snyder Law, and they're able to have their own protected cloud platform in which to assign digital executors like their trustees, other family members, so that those people have access to important files no matter where they are. Of course, the kind of basic thing would be to leave copies of things behind before you go on vacation. So what we would call a red file, emergency file, break glass in case of emergency. We're putting a file together. That file, and that's a temporary file that we physically give to somebody else. Right. So that's my example of the son. Mom and dad go on vacation. Here's son. Here's a copy of a red file. It has in here copies of all of our important legal documents, passwords that you will need to know. You need to know, medication that we're on. Here are copies of our birth certificates, marriage license, and if dad, mom or dad are veterans, or our DD 214 discharge paperwork. All of that you have in a red file. Or some of you, just do this in general. Like here, this filing cabinet, this file drawer here in this picture. There's something called a next of kin, NOK, or knock box. I give a shout out to my mom for that, for letting me know about this company. It'll help you get organized with all these hanging files for all your paperwork. So you have it in an easy carrying case, so you can maybe just transport that, leave that with the person who's supposed to be your successor trustee, or you let them know where to locate it. Don't just keep everything in at the bank in a safe deposit box. While it sounds good, in practice, it becomes a little bit more difficult if the people that you want to have access to the documents don't have the key to the safe deposit box, or they're not even close to that bank where the safe deposit box is. So think through some of these practicalities, and you're going to want to do a fire drill to say, hey, if I'm in this situation, let me literally walk through the different steps my loved one who I want to be in charge. So we use the husband, wife, mom and dad situation. Walk through a fire drill. Literally, what do we want him to do? How fast do we want him to do it? How he is, we're going to walk through just like we're him right now. How is he going to do all these things? And we can see the flaws in the process, so then you can shore them up. One of the things that ends up being a trip up for lots of people is not knowing what their loved one had as far as accounts, policies. They don't know what debt they had. They don't know what online subscriptions they have, accounts, and they have to do all of that research after the fact, which of course, for all of us, if we were to sit down and try to remember everything that we signed up for over our lifetime and try to literally write down our digital footprint, that's difficult. And we're alive, and these are things that we opened and we set up. Never mind if we're coming in after the fact, after death or an incapacity, and we're trying to piece it all together, and we don't have the ability to go to the person who opened up these accounts and ask them because they're either incapacitated or they've died. So it's just exponentially more difficult. And many of you might know that from having gone through it yourselves already in life when you've dealt with the situation of coming in after the fact and trying to figure out somebody else's financial mess, so to speak. And we all have that. It's like the junk drawer in the kitchen. Everyone has a junk drawer. It's just you open up that junk drawer, it's like how messy is your junk drawer versus somebody else's? But we all have junk. There isn't like this perfect scenario where you go in into someone's kitchen and they don't have a junk drawer. Just like here, you don't. Not everyone is 100% in being super organized, where there's not going to be a little bit of bumpiness here. Everyone always has things that they forget to account for. But the goal here is not is the goal. We're striving for perfection, right? That's the horizon. We're always trying to get to the horizon. We're never going to get there, but we're going to get darn close. And that's what we want to do here. We want to really focus on organization and being perfect in the organization. And so if we shoot for the stars or shoot for the moon and fall amongst the stars, that's the saying. Same here. We're going to strive for perfection so that we have the least cluttered junk drawer when it comes to our accounts. And so you're going to want to do that before you leave. Keep it in a safe place that is accessible. So again, communication is key here. Like the red file. These are things that go in that red file that you say, look, I'm this is where I'm going. And my mom used to my mom and dad a few times that they did leave when we were kids and gone away, they always left my grandparents or the sitter information of here's the hotel we're going to be at, this is how long we're going to be at this hotel, and then we're going to take this flight and go here, and here's the phone number, and that all went in this file. Same here. We want to have all that information, including our accounts. And if we keep it in a lockbox, this might sound silly, but make sure the person we want to have access knows how to knows where that lockbox is, and they know how to access it. They have the key or they know the code. Might sound basic, but these are things that are easily forgotten. We're just like, oh yeah, I have it in my safe. But we forget that we've never told anybody where the safe is, or we moved the safe since the last time we told somebody where it was. And maybe we changed the type of safe or we changed the code. So we really want to think through that fire drill, right? So then they go find it in the safe. Well, how are they going to open the safe? So to go through literally step by step by step and find the flaws in your plan. Um, so along with all of this, there's an important conversation about life insurance. So we've been part of the conversation today. I've always been saying, well, death or incapacity, accident, injury. Now we're talking about death here when we talk about life insurance. Naturally, you have passed away, and the insurance company pays out a death benefit if you have a life insurance policy. So we want to make sure before you go that your coverage is sufficient to cover your dependents should you be the one that passed away, particularly if you have dependents, right? Like me. I am married, so I have a wife and 3 kids. So if I die while traveling on vacation, I want to make sure that the life insurance is sufficient. And that's for any time in life, whether I'm traveling or not. But certainly it gets heightened when the fact that I am leaving is in my mind a risk because I'm leaving my comfort zone of my what I know. I know I have all my known risks in my little orbit in life. I know that driving to work every day is a risk, but I know how to manage that risk. But now that I'm going to be somewhere foreign, in the sense that even if it's stateside, somewhere different, now there's all sorts of new risks because I'm unfamiliar with the situation and I don't know necessarily how to manage those risks. So in my mind, it becomes riskier to travel. And maybe you don't break it down as nerd-like as I just did, but you too feel that way. It's somehow a little bit more inherently risky to travel. So we want to protect against those risks, and one of those risks is dying. And if you die, then you want to make sure your family is well taken care of. And so we look at whether or not your policies are sufficient. And because some of us say, well, I have the life insurance through work, but let's really look at what does that mean? What's the coverage? A lot of life insurance policies at work are group policies. Maybe you didn't have to go get assessed and approved. And if that was the case, your life insurance probably $50,000 to $100,000. That's not a lot. Certainly not a lot to leave your family to help financially support them, even in the immediacy of your death, to cover bills, to cover costs of funeral, medical costs, things like that. And so look at increasing your life insurance policy. Look at term policies, particularly if you're younger, that you have younger dependents. Then the term life insurance is going to be great, assuming you don't have any conditions that would disqualify you. That would be probably the cheapest way that you can insure. And of course, there's other insurance products out there that you can explore, and you can utilize a financial advisor or a insurance agent to talk through some of those options if you're looking at whole life policies, universal policies. That's going to be important, as well as long-term care policies too. So that's that piece. Assess your coverage. Do you have sufficient coverage? Look at beneficiary designation. So maybe you got these policies a while ago. When you open the policy, you put beneficiaries on there, but now you're not sure what they are. You're kind of sure. You're only 100% sure if you can look at the paper, you look at the screen that the insurance company provides you, and you can see who's designated. It just takes a little bit of time. Confirm that. This is not something that you just want to be kind of sure on or assume. Because what if you thought about doing it and you forgot to submit the form or the form got lost or something? And there's nobody there, guess what? That insurance policy goes through probate court. It's paid to your state. Your state's going to have to probate it. It's going to be potentially a year and a half before the money comes out to your family, and that could be just a huge problem, right? That's not the concept and the idea. We want to get the money to get to our loved ones as soon as that they can get a death certificate, because that's the whole purpose. This is supposed to be financially supportive of them, not a problem. And we certainly don't want to lose up to 5% of it through the probate court. So check your beneficiaries. And if you have young children, just a tip, do not name your young children as beneficiaries. So I see that a lot with parents. They have said, well, I want my spouse and then my kids. Well, at least my kids are all under 18, or at least one of them's under 18. If you have a beneficiary that's under the age of 18 on that form, that their portion is going to go through probate court. So we want that to be held in a trust for those that are minors, those that have disabilities and are collecting benefits. And certainly those that have liabilities, whether they're spendthrifts or they they're a target for lawsuits, or they are in a potentially a bad marriage and there could be a divorce. Those are all things that could take away that life insurance policy, or at least a portion of it. So a trust is a great option. You can name a trust as a beneficiary on policy. So if you don't have a trust and you're going to take a look at it, if you have kids are named as beneficiaries, and anything I just said is like, ooh, geez, I don't want my kids under 18. I kind of like this idea of protection. If I have children 18 or older, let's take a look at a trust. That'd be helpful. And certainly, if you've gone through a divorce or a relationship change, or there's been other dynamics changes, sometimes we haven't updated our beneficiaries and we have the wrong people on there, right? So there's a lot of too many stories out there where an ex-spouse is inheriting, or a child that had there's been an estrangement is inheriting, and things like that. So we want to make sure that we're 100% positive who our beneficiaries are. That goes for retirement accounts as well. So when you set up a retirement account, oftentimes, again, you're filling out the beneficiaries, and again, most likely, if you're married, it's going to be your spouse if you've designated, but maybe you don't have a backup to your spouse. I've seen that a lot. Oh, I just named my spouse. We didn't have kids at the time, or I just named my spouse and didn't realize how I was going to incorporate the kids, or kids were minors. So we didn't put them on there. Whatever the occasion may be, you don't have a backup to your spouse, and your spouse died before you, or the tragic accident, even if, going in the car to dinner, you get in an accident, you pass away, both of you, then guess what? The retirement account is going to fall into probate. So we want to take a look at your beneficiaries from that angle. Oh, and by the way, it kind of what one thing I do see as a shortcut sometimes with those that have children under the age of 18 is that they say, "Oh, I'm going to name my brother or sister." But whoever is going to be the guardian, I'm going to put them down. So we'll get around this whole trust business by just putting them down, the guardians down, as the backup beneficiaries to my spouse, because the $1 million policy I have, that's going to go to my brother, and he'll make sure that that money's used for my kids. Sure, you might trust your brother that way, you might trust your sibling that way, and they mean well and they mean for that to happen, but they never meant for themselves to get divorced and lose that money or part of it in a divorce. They never meant to have so many creditors and have the creditors take that money, or have to file bankruptcy or get sued because they got in a car accident. Sweet James gets hired on the other side, and they sue your sibling, and they lose a portion of all of that insurance money in that lawsuit that was supposed to go to your kids. So that's just like a do-it-yourself workaround that can go really badly. So we want to avoid that situation too. So again, retirement accounts, confirm designated beneficiaries. Not that difficult these days. You can go online and check it out in most cases, or pick up the phone. As much as we don't like to be on hold or go through the phone tree, here, this is important items, because that minor inconvenience is going to have a huge payout. It's going to be a huge benefit for you to find that mistake, or at least have that peace of mind that, hey, everything is set up the right way, versus you not wanting to do it, and then you have the unexpected event, and now there's a huge loss to your family financially, or there's just a much bigger problem that you could easily have gone in front of. Those of you that are business owners, it's also important to do this estate plan for your business. Literally walk through a fire drill. Like, if I'm gone on vacation and the proverbial what is the fan, well, do I have a plan, an operations plan to deal with that? Do I have my manager in place that knows exactly what to do? Does the important people that we've left in charge, do they know their roles? Do the other team members know the roles? Does everyone know who they're supposed to report to, or what they're supposed to do in case of a client emergency or customer emergency, and when the boss is gone, right? So just go through that analysis. But then also, well, what if something happens to the boss? The boss can never be the boss again because the boss died, or the boss is in the hospital for a long time. How's the business going to continue to run? We were just thinking he or she was gonna be gone for a couple weeks, but now it's several months or forever. So what is the plan? So you got to take a look at that fire drill, above, like, who are the emergency contacts, who can make decisions. Now, who's going to succeed in business if the owner has died? What happens then? How is the business going to? Is there going to be business continuation, or is the business just over at that point? What happens to employees? What happens to accounts receivable, Can somebody access the bank accounts? Legally, are there going to be problems? The answer is yes, because the business owner has died. Only the business owner can access the business accounts, even if you have authorized personnel to access bank accounts. If the business owner has died, then those accounts are frozen. And only the bank's only going to answer to somebody who comes back with an order from the court saying that they're able to access that. And those orders here in California are called letters testamentary, and many states are called the same. So the bank's going to say we need to get letters testamentary before we give anybody any access. And that can be problematic for a business because that's going to halt operations of the business. If employees can't get paid, vendors can't get paid, you can't get access because you can't get access to receivables that are coming in the bank account. I've seen this happen before, and it is it's a very bad situation. And so we want to have that all ironed out. We want to make sure that the business is not going to go through probate court if you die. Well, is it connected with a trust? If you have a trust and you have a business, are they connected to each other? In other words, is the membership of your LLC owned by the trust, or is your corporation, your corporate shares owned by a trust? The answer is no. Then that's going to be a problem. You might have a trust, but the trust is only going to deal with the assets that the trust holds because the trust is like a box. And there's assets in that box. Well, if the business assets are not in that box, guess what? The business is dealt with differently. So I've seen situations where people have done their work to create this trust, and but then they've started this other business, and they never thought to put their business in a trust, and so they've died, and then everything else goes fairly smoothly with all their accounts and everything through the trust, and that avoids probate. But their business has to go through probate, and that becomes a big albatross for the family. I've talked about this legacy contacts, a little tip. I said there's going to be some extras here that we get to by the end of our meeting today. So, iPhone has legacy contact settings. And if you're interested in this, just let us know in the chat. And we have a good how-to that we can get you. So let us know your email. We'll email that out to you. And if you're watching this later, maybe we'll have this in our little show notes. Our little how-to set up your legacy contact on an Apple device, whether it's your phone or iPad or computer. You could do that. That's going to be important. And then for other subscriptions you have, like maybe Facebook or Instagram, anything owned um, in that parent family, in the Meta family, there's a way that you can set up legacy contacts as well. You can utilize programs like LastPass or Dashlane password aggregators, where it's easy. There's one password that you have to make sure your trusted people know to have access to, so that they can get all the passwords that they need because passwords are changing so frequently these days. It's hard to keep them up to date, even if you're diligent in writing them down. So look at how to transition data or digital assets. And as I kept mentioning throughout today, is give your emergency plan a fire drill. Literally, again, I can't say this enough. Sit down and say, okay, I'm on vacation, I'm on a beach and watching the ocean, having a margarita. This is wonderful, great, and now I've died. I died in my happy place, wonderful, bad for my family because now what? Well, they got to get my body back home. How are they going to do that? Who's the first person they're going to contact? Who do they contact over there? They find, they're literally next to me. They see I've died. Who do they contact? It might be easy if your state's at 911, but if you're somewhere else, would you contact? If you're international, do I need to contact the embassy? What do I need to do? And all these steps. Oh, I bought that plan that Kevin talked about. Then I know I just need to make sure that my loved ones know that then who to contact, who controls that plan, because that'll be easy to now. What happens in these other steps? How are people going to back home going to know that I've died or I'm in the hospital, and so on and so forth, right? Each little step, write it down, literally, as if you're going to have someone else read it and carry it out. It's the instruction manual. You have to be literal. You have to write it with the mindset, or go through it with the mindset like this is going to be a young child, maybe who's 10 years old, can understand step by step and literally follow it. You have to break it down that detailed so that you can see and stress test and see where the cracks are in this plan, and not just have these big mental leaps like, oh, they'll do this. Well, how are they even going to know that something's happened to you for them to do something? Usually that's the biggest mental leap is, okay, well, I have legal documents, and so I did my estate plan, but we forget, well, how are people going to know something's happened to you? How are they going to access that estate plan that you have? Do they know who your attorney is to contact for help? Things like that. So give yourself a fire drill. And in closing, some bonus tips for you as you're traveling out there on your vacation. If you're going international, before you leave, contact the U.S. Embassy. Go on their website. Find out where it is in the country you're traveling to. You make sure you have their contact information. They have a smart travel enrollment program if you're going abroad, U.S. embassies. So register with them. Share your itinerary with other people that you're not traveling with, so that they know if you've gone missing. Right. So it's like we hear the diapers that went off, and they have been gone for a week before someone realized that they were gone. Right. Or because no one knew what their travel plans were. So if somebody can retrace your steps, know where you were in traveling, they can best find out what happened to you sometimes if they're doing that way. Some other practical, and like I said, leave hotel information so that they can follow up with the hotel. Hey, I haven't heard from Kevin, and I know he was supposed to be back home by this point, but he's not home, so he's not answering his phone. So, but I know he was at this hotel or that hotel. So that works as much as it works if they're trying to get in touch with you because they're finding out about, oh, something's going wrong, haywire in the business, or you're traveling out without your kids and something happened to one of your kids. That works as well. So people have to know how to get in touch with you, and people have to know if something has happened to you. Apple AirTags are wonderful, right? They're easy to get. I say spend the money, get the real ones, don't get the knockoffs. They'll help you trace your bags, people. So if you're traveling, put them in a day pack, certainly with the group that you're traveling with. Obviously, if you have other dependents that you're with. Everyone gets one in their day pack. If you're not going to already activate phones to still use phone apps like Life 360, you can use AirTags as well. But as a phones, you're going to want to make sure that you have an international plan already set up before you go. Inform banks and credit cards that you're traveling internationally, so you don't have to be in the difficult situation where you can't pay for something. You have the ability to, you have money in the bank, you have the credit, but it's looking like fraud to those financial institutions, so they've locked up your accounts, and now you have to spend unnecessary time trying to unlock them, calling internationally, and going backwards. So do that, and of course, if any of your debit cards or other cards get stolen or get compromised, um, then that's also good for the financial institutions to know because they're like, oh, they're traveling in France or Italy or Mexico, and now we're getting charges in Madagascar or China or wherever, and that just still will alert a fraud on their end. You're also going to want to get those little cards that act as like Bluetooth blockers. So for your passports and for your other cards that you keep in your wallet, there's these technologies literally that pickpockets wouldn't have to pick your wallet out of your pocket. They literally can scan that information with one of their little technological devices. I don't know exactly how it works, but basically they have a device and they just scan it by you, and you don't have to pick up your wallet. Now they get all the data off of your chip, the chip that's now in your passport, the chip that's now on your phone. They can do that. There's technology that allows them to do that, but you can buy these little cards, plastic cards, that basically act as a firewall you put in your wallet, and they are not able to do that. So that's something to get as well. So those are some things. Like make sure you make a copy of your passport, and you travel with a copy of your passport as well in case your passport gets lost or stolen. You still have a copy of your passport as well. And all the emergency numbers for you to contact if something like that happens. Um, and then, of course, you're going to want to research some of the particulars about the countries you're traveling in. So, money exchange rates, best practices, things like that. That's all important. And for those of you that have plans, the last thing I'll say, your advanced healthcare directives, if you are traveling in another, like I would say, first world country, but country that has good relations with the United States or historically has had good relations with the United States, oftentimes they'll use that as instructive or like suggestive as far as who hospitals are able to talk to. So you have a healthcare director that says, "Oh, you can talk to my spouse, so you can talk to my healthcare agent." It's a different set of laws, it's a different country, but they use that as good instruction as, oh, we're authorized to talk to these people. So just know that going in advance. Or you have a child that's studying abroad, that's helpful too. But again, get more specific information in regards to what you might need and extra for that by contacting the U.S. Embassy. And particularly in today's day and age, right now, some countries have additional protocols that you have to follow for as far as getting a visa or not having to get a visa and things like that. You want to know that before you're landing in the other country, and they're not letting you in, so it's not a wasted trip. All right. So, oh yeah, how we get these plans in here. So if you're looking at the slides, it says learn more here on the screen. That doesn't really help you. So, like I said, put in the chat what your email is. We'll get you that link so you can purchase this particular plan. This is the company that we use. Excellent, excellent, excellent. I personally use them for our plans is for repatriation. Well, I think maybe we will pull the cord. We'll let people get off on their day and so they can get on their vacations.